better appliances, better technology. We have improved refrigerants. We have improved the compressors and the other different parts. We improved the COP of most of the appliances. But the issue is that, and which I have been discussing with most of the other partner countries, should we allow cooling as a sector that after 10 or 15 years or 2 decades, the cooling itself, the cooling demand will become a hard-to-abate sector? We did so much of industrialization. We produce steel. We put up so many steel plants, cement plants, chemical plants, everything, because we developed in industries, etc. And after 30, 40, 50, 60 years, we realized these are all hard-to-abate sectors. We have put up those big plants. Our economy is depending on so many steel, aluminum production. We can't suddenly stop these plants. And now we want to find a solution how to reduce emission, and we call it as a hard-to-abate sector. Hard-to-abate means we have reached to say that now we don't know what to do, and then we are finding solution. So should we allow cooling sector to go to an extent that after 20 years we will say, oh, this is a hard-to-abate sector. I don't know how to reduce the emission from that. So for that I will need another 30% of extra power, and that power has to come from renewable or hydro or whatever. Then we will need another investment in that. So the best part is that, and especially those countries which are actually now developing, and they are around the equator and the tropical area. And of course, the same principle can apply to developed countries which are in the colder regions where the heating is the issue, and there is a lot of energy consumption on the heating system. But if we really tackle this cooling and maybe cooling and heating as a sector which is a demand sector, and start optimizing the demand itself when it is growing. The principles of energy efficiency, the principles of energy utilization and the transition is that whichever sector grows very fast, whichever sector has a higher growth rate, it offers more opportunities. So if we don't use this opportunity of a growing cooling sector to optimize the demand, to put technologies on an experiment basis, on innovation basis, and experiment different combination, different infrastructure, different designs, different passive aspects, etc., and optimize the cooling demand. So if I may say that even if we see the India Cooling Action Plan, we are expecting at least threefold growth from 2017 to 2037. That's phenomenal. You can't expect that additional 200 gigawatt load coming only because of cooling in India. Forget about the other things in the industry, etc. So if we can reduce that 200 to 100, it will be a big challenge. So I'm trying to work with most of the countries to find out innovative solution, and one innovative solution is the district cooling, where we can really expect a game-changing in terms of the demand. So there are two very clear directions. One, to utilize the technology which is best suited for reducing the consumption or improving the efficiency. And second thing, which is more important, to come out with the design of the entire system, the cooling system itself, where we can optimize the demand itself. So at the end, I want different countries to come out with some kind of a place, and district cooling offers a very good options for India. That let India decide. India can reduce 100 gigawatt from cooling. UAE can reduce 50 gigawatt. Singapore can reduce 20 gigawatt, like that. And in that, once we come out with such ambition or some goals, we come out with alternative solutions like district cooling. In India, the challenges we are facing is that district cooling has to come out with a guideline or a direction in terms of a utility. So we are shifting from ownership of a consumer to the ownership of a service provider. And that's where there is a challenge. It is not a new thing as such. We are using electricity as a distribution system. We are now having the gas, the natural gas system in the household cooking gas. It's again a kind of a distributed system. But those are all backed by regulatory instruments. Unfortunately, we don't have such kind of a regulatory system for cooling or heating. Even we don't have for steam as such. We are using sometimes steam. So this is where the challenge lies. how are we actually come out with the policies, the regulatory framework, where the consumers will be actually having confidence to go in for a service provider. My question is, and this question was put by higher authorities to me, fine, you implement district cooling system, and then tomorrow the service provider doubles the cost of cooling. What is is he going to again discard the entire system and then again going to purchase or are you going to change the service provider? He has invested, he can't do it. So these are the challenges. So we need strong policies backed by a lot many regulatory framework. But till such time we reach to that scale or that critical mass, I think we need some kind of good projects to come up. We need at least some of the new projects where they are closed-door projects, some big institutions, big colonies, big infrastructure areas, airports, where we can actually use the district cooling, demonstrate that there are enough teething troubles which can be resolved, and finally come out with a good policy backed up by some regulatory measures, and we can implement and enlarge the consumer base for district cooling. So these are the two recommendations. First thing, let's come out with the cooling as a sector where we can optimize the demand. And second thing, go out for different innovations in terms of designs, the ecosystem, the infrastructure, and district cooling is one area where it can offer a very good and effective solution. Thank you so much for patiently.
May I now request Ms. Annalily Stutz, Project Officer of District Cooling from GIZ, and request her to kindly deliver her special address.
Thank you very much, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thankful for the India Smart Grid Forum for inviting me here, and it's a pleasure to be here with you at this important moment in our discussions during a year which is full of promising opportunities for India in terms of energy efficient cooling. We just have to look at COP28 and the G20 presidency of India to see the importance of cooling globally and the lead role which India may take. Now, I am from Germany, and Germany is more associated with district heating than district cooling. The idea is the same. A district heating system consists of various components that together form the overall system. These include heat generation plants, district heating network, which is usually operated with hot water, including pumping station and house connections, as well as transfer stations that deliver the heat to the building heating system. In Germany, by now, every 7th household's building heat demand is covered by district heating, and the demand for such systems has grown significantly over the last year. CO2 emissions are 1/4 when compared with coal. Much of the available heat is only needed during the cold winter months. Therefore, ways are sought to use the energy in summer as well, and one useful application is district cooling. Here, hot water is supplied to the customer, where it is then generated through absorption chillers. This process is currently used for facilities with large cooling requirements, for example, hospitals, municipalities, train stations, and shopping centers. In Chemnitz, there is a central cold storage facility that supplies property in the city since 1973. That's 50 years and still going. We also have district cooling in major cities like Hamburg, Frankfurt, Dresden, Berlin, and Munich. The city utility of Munich is currently working on an extension of its district cooling network, investing more than 80 million euros. DCS in Munich already provides climate-friendly cooling to more than 60 hotels, office buildings, and department stores in the city center. And more than 60 additional connections are in planning stages. The DCS network in Munich is currently 22 kilometers long and will be extended up to 30 kilometers within this year, making the facility in Munich the largest district cooling center in Europe. Here, cooling capacity is fueled by 3 district cooling centers with a capacity of 12 megawatt, utilizing the natural energy of underground water streams. Utilizing the natural cold water streams allows energy savings of up to 70% when compared with traditional cooling technology. Through the usage of renewable energies in the energy production, about 25,000 tons of CO2 emissions are saved annually in the city of Munich alone. A hotel in Munich with 170 rooms can save up to 150,000 euros in OPEX per year thanks to district cooling. In addition, individual cooling systems in the building and their waste heat on-site are no longer required. District cooling thus counteracts the summer heat dome over the city center, as well as the warming of the city. Now, India, with a population of 1.4 billion, more than 3,000 annual cooling degree days, and an air conditioner penetration of 5 to 10%, is very vulnerable to the impact of rising and extreme temperatures. In March 2019, India escalated the opportunities and challenges in cooling to a national priority level in the India Cooling Action Plan, developed under the aegis of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the Government of India with the support from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency and other Indian line ministries. As per the India Cooling Action Plan, the energy consumption from space cooling in buildings was estimated to be approximately 135 terawatt hours in 2017 to 18. Projections show that this will increase up to 4 times in the next 2 decades. This lays down the context for the overwhelming need for space cooling in India and energy-efficient solutions. Now, district cooling is not a new technology for India, right? We just have to look at Gift City as the most famous example. Nevertheless, district cooling is a modern and energy-efficient way to air-condition clusters of buildings in cities and on campuses. District cooling can reduce cooling energy consumption by up to 50% through higher energy utilization and is 5 to 10 times more energy efficient than conventional machine cooling. It can drastically reduce energy use during peak demand periods too. If we are looking at demand, India in February this year has already had a demand of 220 gigawatts. This is the peak demand of last year during the hottest period in April and May. We have already reached this now. So we can estimate that the demand will be rising within this year. So if we have a network in place with electric chillers for cold storage that can help reduce peak electricity demand for cooling in a city by shifting the production to periods of the day or night when there is less run on the electrical network, it is supporting India to meet its energy demand and to avoid load shedding. So the lower cost of district cooling or cooling and air conditioning solution at individual connections, the availability of more space due to compact transfer station at the consummation points, to create a convenience for consumers as many maintenance and repair tasks are eliminated, a higher efficiency due to central generation of cooling for district cooling network, a lower primary energy factor due to natural cooling and waste heat utilization, less CO2 emissions, and less heating of cities, as many small air conditioning systems are eliminated, are strong arguments to further expand district cooling in India and to have district cooling guidelines in place to further promote energy efficient technology within the country. So with these thoughts, I wish us a successful conference and fruitful discussions. Thank you.
This, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, is on regional outlook of DCS and knowledge exchange for APSC, National Climate Targets and Cooling Plans for Inclusion of District Energy Systems and Emerging Technologies. So I think we will start the session. So requesting session chair and moderator, Mr. Jacobson, to kindly make his opening remarks and take it over from here.
Thank you very much, and I would like to start to welcome everyone to this district cooling system session of the India Smart Utility Week. My name is Michael Jacobson, and I'm here today in my role as the president of Asia Pacific Urban Energy Association, APUEA. And APUEA is a cross-sectoral, regional sector association focusing on integrated urban energy systems. That includes district cooling and district heating, district energy, and we are gathering the district energy community, we can say, across the region. And we have many of our partners here today, many of the different kind of organizations, IGOs, NGOs, associations, commercial companies, different kind of actors, and have had a few years history of cooperating already. I realized when I start to prepare for the session here today that this is the first time that I'm not even spending one single second to prepare for describing what district cooling is. And this is really something new, and this is thanks to the work that India Smart Grid Forum have done, that ISRE have done, that APUEA have done, that GIZ have done, and many actors that we have with us here online today also, to really increase the awareness of district cooling and what it is, the different kind of definitions that we see worldwide, the different kind of benefits that we see, so on and so forth. So that's quite nice to see that we're really moving forward, and we're talking more about benefits and how to overcome challenges than just describing what it is. With that said, I think we will hear from many of the speakers here today that there is still a great need for increasing the awareness, because we are not there yet really, but we have come some way, and we see some progress anyway.
So my name is Vikram Murthy. I'm here representing two organizations. The first is the Indian Society of Heating, Refrigerating, Air Conditioning Engineers, which is an all-India society. And specific to this panel, we have a technical group on district cooling, which is very active and has a large number of stakeholders. Some of them are part of this panel. And we have recently assisted GIZ to make the district cooling guide for BE. So we have been very excited about that, and we've done our job. We've also presented some case studies of a very interesting residential district cooling project in Hyderabad. Apart from that, what I wish to say is that the effort to do district cooling must come from within and not from without. So residential buildings are a very good way to get district cooling going. And Hyderabad is a great place where all this is happening. And I have recently been asked to advise in an honorary capacity another big project of 25,000 tons of district cooling for a medium scale, not medium scale, but medium income group residential sector. As we all know, the residential sector is the largest amount of cooling in India, 70%. So if we attack that sector and private developers come into it, we will have a good start. So I'll end over here.
Thank you very much, Vikram. I think we continue with the room here, so if you could continue, Asim from Tabrid, and then we will go on to the online panelists afterwards.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Asim, and I represent business development for Tabrid. Tabrid is one of the world's largest district cooling utilities. We have over 24 years of experience, providing 1.3 million tons of cooling to more than 400 million square feet of real estate developments, primarily across Middle East region. So most of the iconic projects in, say, UAE and other GCC countries are cooled by Tabrid. Now, having set foot in India three years ago, having seen the potential that India has among all Asia-Pacific countries, our work in India has primarily been on 3 counts. One, in increasing the awareness for district cooling, which can help in faster adoption of this in all new developments that come up. Then, coming on to public DCS projects, we have been engaging with the government organizations as well, and all the agencies that we have here as well today, to try and convince them to come out with a district cooling tender also whenever they are coming up with any large real estate infrastructure development. So we won a concession 3 years ago for Amravati, the state capital of Andhra Pradesh. And recently, we have submitted a bid for Hyderabad Pharma City, the state government tender of Telangana state government. The third aspect on which we have been primarily working is engaging more and more with the private real estate developers for their grade A office spaces. In this, we are primarily working on DB Food model where we are ready to acquire as well their existing cooling assets, and we are also looking to enter greenfield projects to build a proper DCS from the design stage itself and continue operate it through a long-term concession. So, and we look forward to faster adoption of district cooling systems in India. And we have significant commitment to be here, to invest here, along with our partner IFC, which is part of World Bank. So it's a pleasure to be here and look forward to the engaging discussion here today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Asim. Then we will move back to the digital participants. So I will reach out to you again, Eloa, to ask you to make an introduction of yourself and your organization.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So it's great to be here today in India, but virtually. So I'm Eloa from Heat and Power, which is the international association representing district heating and district cooling. Michael, can you hear me well? Just a test. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Eloa.
Okay, great. So some of our members are very active at global level, involved in projects on heating and cooling all around the planet. And at Heat, I'm now developing a new business intelligence function. And I should also say that I've led within EHP the work on cooling and supported planning with the co-founder of DEFCO, a board member and the chairman of our Heat and Power cooling group. So I'm happy to speak today in the context of development in India. And I should tell also that 2 years ago I organized and chaired a discussion on cooling at the Global Congress of Heat, and I have pleasure already to have a distinguished speakers from India, Mr. Sherpa Shankar, he is in the room. So thank you for the organization. Michael, should I continue with some statements?
Thank you very much, Eloa. I think we heard some of it at least, and I think we also will make sure that you can provide information more also about the organization and what you're doing and so on to for the ones interested. The next one I would like to reach out to is Roman Donat from NG, who I hope we have with us also, and ask you to make an introduction about yourself and your organization as well. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I guess you can hear me. Good to see you. So I'm Romain Donat. I'm a business developer, specifically for DHC activity and specifically for international development of district cooling and heating. I work for NG. So NG is the leader of district cooling activity in the world. Mainly thanks to Tabrid, which we hold 40% of shareholding. Well, I will introduce you quickly about how district cooling can bring flexibility to the electric grid. Thanks to also an example of a project we have currently in United States for a university. And I will have a specifically focus also on the university sector for cooling, which is quite interesting.
Thank you very much, Roman. We will come back to you on that. And the last one we have online is Rahul from UNEP.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure having me here on this panel. Thank you to ISGF for inviting me. UNEP is working in India on cooling from last 7 years, and we started the concept of district cooling first in India, and this was under the District Energy and Cities Initiative, which is a global program launched that time in 2014 for 14 countries and 36 cities across the globe. And India was one of the partners under this District Energy and Cities Initiative. So going forward, I'll discuss on what work we have done in India and what were the challenges and which cities we supported. And I'm happy to tell everyone that all the panelists present here today are members of District Energy in Cities Initiative, including ISHRE. So I'll stop here and over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Raul, for that. So then we got a quick introduction to everyone. With the risk of me categorizing all the panelists, I would like to start to zoom out a little bit and take this district cooling from a global perspective. And for the ones who feel that you're not fitting in the category where I will put you, you are free to comment on any aspect of the geographical focus, let's say. So from a global perspective, I would like to reach out to Roman from ENGIE, who is active across the whole globe, and ask you, what are the trends that you see when it comes to district cooling? Just in general, different markets, what do you see across your operations?
Okay, what we see globally, is that okay? Okay. What we see globally is that cooling demand is rising all around the globe. We ENGIE are active in 17 countries, and we see that in Asia and specifically in some tropical parts of Asia, it's rising a lot. So we think that now the cooling demand is really some opportunity and a real need to invest and to procure some efficient infrastructures. So what we want to do is to propose a global view. It's not only procure some cooling need for buildings, but also a global view which includes some efficiency services and which includes some operating investments, something that could bring a global point of the activities that can be done on district cooling. So so cooling is rising really a lot, and we face it with some new also innovation concerning the efficiency, some new solutions. And I will talk about that, but some impacts on how can district cooling can bring flexibility is really interesting for us. Not only because of the efficiency, but because we can procure some, we can propose some local production, electric production, which is really interesting, really necessary in some cases. And the impact also, what we are really working on is the storage. And storage, thermal storage is really interesting and important for cooling activity.
Thank you very much, Roman. I think this was really great things that you touch upon, and actually gives the bridge over also from the previous session that was discussing about the challenges of overloading the electricity grid and the challenges with rising temperatures and so on. Obviously, district cooling plays a role here to really offload the grid and shave the electrical peaks, store the energy and produce it during nighttime, to use it during daytime, and so on and so forth. So actually a lot of the challenges in the electricity grid can be supported by district cooling in many different ways. So I think it's very interesting to touch more upon that topic later, Roman. It's great, thank you. So looking globally, I think we can zoom down a little bit and look at Europe. And what do we see? What kind of trends do we see in Europe? And then I would like to reach out to Eloa from Euroheat and Power.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Well, in Europe as well, cooling demands are growing, demand from the service sectors, but also demands are growing in the residential sector, and we have had a series of warm and very hot summers in Europe. Yes.
Can you try without the headset one time, because it's a little bit it's difficult to hear. Can you try how it works if you don't have the headset?
Yes. Is it better like this, Michael?
again.
Can you hear me?
Maybe yes. If you, yeah, be a little bit closer to the computer there, as you are now. In the end, there, I think it's
okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now I'll put it okay. No, I was saying. I hope that you can hear me now. That in Europe, demands are also growing. Demands from the cooling sector, but also.
I don't. Sorry, Eloy. It's very difficult to hear. Try very close to the computer if it's possible.
Michael, maybe you can switch to another speaker, and I will try to get another headset.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I was expecting actually to come later to you, Rahul, at UNEP to talk more about Asia Pacific. But I mean, as you are also working globally, if you have some comments there on the trends that you see globally from UNEP's perspective, feel free to chip in the meantime while we're waiting for Eloy.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Michael, for this question. What I think is district cooling acceptability is growing in different cities and worldwide. Earlier, what we used to see, there were certain barriers and the market was not prepared. There was lack of awareness, particularly in South Asian, Southeast Asian countries, talking about India, Malaysia, Indonesia. Even when we started in Chile in 2015 back, that time in Egypt, district cooling work was very slow and we had to convince so many people there, reach out to so many stakeholders, did a lot of training and capacity building programs with each of these countries, created this District Energy in Cities initiative where a public-private partnership was created. Around 70 partners are now member of District Energy in Cities initiative. So what we have seen is with all this work happening over the past 6-7 years, cities are now understanding what is district cooling. For example, in Chile, the government has come out with district cooling codes. We are supporting them in developing a pilot demonstration project. In Egypt, we are supporting the government in preparing district cooling codes. And there also we are talking of developing a pilot district cooling project. In India, specifically since I'm coming from India, that's our corner, and we have been pushing district cooling through BE, Energy Efficiency Services Limited, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Housing. And I see there is some good progress. ISRE, Mr. Vikram Murthy is on the panel, and because of alliance with them, we are now seeing that many of the cities are coming forward and trying to evaluate the feasibility of district cooling in new area development. Like Asim just now spoke about the Hyderabad Pharma City. That was also one of the project under our initiative. The Amravati city, which was that time declared as the capital of Andhra Pradesh, but then because of some political interventions, the project did not move ahead, but that could have been the first district cooling project in India if that would have happened. But anyways, now Amravati, Hyderabad Pharma City is the project where things are moving ahead. We also have many developers like Tabreed, Singapore Power and all, who are looking India and Southeast Asia as a potential market for district cooling and are coming here and talking to different stakeholders. So I think Tabreed recently also had MOU with IFC, and IFC is putting in money in Tabreed to help develop and implement district cooling project, which is again a very positive sign. And a lot of things are happening, but what I see is more push is required from policy point of view to get district cooling incorporated into city level new area development plans, and also some incentives and regulatory framework, how district cooling projects are going to execute it. Because while back, DGB Abhay Vakreji mentioned about the issues that may arise if a private developers start working on such projects, and if they are able, they fail to deliver their promises and the quality and performance. So such issues are some risks and barriers for implementing district cooling, and we are working with BE and ESL and ISHRE and all the stakeholders on how we can develop some model contract documents, how we can bring in the legal aspects in more clarity into these tender documents and the contractual agreements. So things are happening and moving. So I stop there, Michael. I know I have taken a lot of time.
Thank you very much, Rahul. It was very comprehensive. That's great. We will come back to you later also more into the Indian market and your activities there. So let's see if we have LOI with us to talk a little bit about what's going on in Europe and so on.
Can you hear me now?
Try again.
And now?
I can hear Eloy. I can hear Eloy.
Now it's fine.
Okay.
Good.
Mic is working?
Yes, now it's better, much better.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry
No worries.
For the issues. Yeah, so I do it again. So on Europe, what we are observing, obviously, it's also a growing demand from cooling, also from the residential sector. So I was saying that we have a series of warm and very hot summers in Europe. It's also true that citizens want more comfort. Now, what we can see also is that these cooling demands are met primarily with small building bound units, and there is no proper policies to address these demands. If you look at the size of district cooling in Europe, it's around 4 terawatt-hour production, and two markets leading are Sweden and France with around 1 terawatt-hour each.
I'm very sorry, Elo. I think it's very difficult to hear. I think we don't catch what is going on. I don't know if it is something with the internet connection or something, because it's breaking up all the time. So I'm very sorry. I think we have to move on there, because it's the same issue as it was from the beginning. So sorry for that. So with that, I would like to then come to Asim and Tabreed and hear a little bit on, I mean, you are not only obviously active in India, so if you have some insights also from your other markets where you're operating, it's also interesting to hear, but not least about your activities in India. What are the trends that you see, and how has it been on this journey that you have had for a couple of years here local in India?
Yeah, sure. So primarily, as I was mentioning earlier, we have been in GCC region for quite some time. So there it's quite a prevalent concept, and it's a public utility there. So a lot of things get solved when we say that district cooling is a public utility. Now, coming on to when we set foot in India, actually our focus is the entire Asia, even the platform that we have has been set up in Singapore. So we are supposed to look at all Asia-Pacific countries. In Asia-Pacific countries, Singapore, as you know, is the most mature market. It's the only one in Asia-Pacific that has a DC regulation. Then Malaysia and Thailand also have many district cooling systems, but primarily all private district cooling systems. But having said that, India is the biggest market that we see. As per UNEP EESL study also, there is a potential for 274 district cooling systems with 9 million tons of cooling capacity by 2038. And you see, how much does it help? This 9 million tons, if it gets done through district cooling systems, it shaves off more than 6 gigawatt of peak power load from our electricity distribution system. It removes around 6 million tons of CO2 emissions. And how much does it save in DISCOM capex? It saves more than 85,000 crores in distribution capex of DISCOMs. Now, coming to our India experience and the challenges, so definitely we see a growing awareness about district cooling in India. But I would categorize this discussion then in two parts. One, on the public front. when we talk about public projects, unlike the success that has been seen in renewable energy development, there are challenges in offtake mechanism if we talk about district cooling systems. So the contracts that we have seen till now, the tenders that we have seen till now, there are not very strong offtake mechanisms, which sometimes we find it hard to explain it to our potential lenders as well when we talk about project financing while bidding for these projects. So having a standardized mechanism with the help of different agencies with continuing engagement with government ministries will help for sure. Then we are also in discussions with some discoms. When discoms are ready to provide us even a utility plots, etc., they are ready to become enablers to set up district cooling systems so that they don't have to incur additional capex on building up additional power infra, rather the existing loads if they can be catered through a district cooling. But then, not being a public utility, we are not allowed to dig roads to lay underground insulated network of chilled water if it's an already existing development. So these kind of challenges are there, but with time we hope to get more and more say in these possibilities. Now coming to the private sector part of it, definitely there is a growing awareness. Everyone wants to at least know about district cooling. There's a growing interest from all large real estate developers for their commercial grade A office spaces. But in terms of efficiency, for example, the mechanism that we have seen in India is a simple pass-through. So no one cares about efficiency because they have been able to pass through the electricity consumption costs as it is to their tenants. This is changing. We are in advanced stages of discussions for signing some concessions with private players. So this will, as we have more and more precedents of these contracts, of these concessions with reputed real estate developers, definitely this is going to change, and more and more focus is going to come towards electrical efficiency through these district cooling systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asim, for that the insights, and also your touching upon both the opportunities and the challenges is great. I would like to turn to you, Vikram. We had the opportunity to have a few capacity building sessions a few years back on district cooling, and I would like to hear a little bit, what have you seen since, and how do you see the trends in India from your perspective coming from the side?
Good. So I see the trends in India as very positive. Being optimistic about district cooling is certainly not a pipe dream. It's going to be a reality. So Asim pointed out many of the roadblocks, but these roadblocks can be overcome step by step. We heard the DG in the morning. So as and when the district cooling guidelines come, and they are widely distributed, I am going to take the effort to teach that to the CPWD, because they are the contractor for the Central Vista project, for which I'm an honorary advisor. So we have to get this whole thing rolling step by step. So this capacity building, our society, ISUW, has 40 chapters, and now we have 5 chapters in neighboring countries of India, and also the UAE, which is a nice thing for Asim to help us with Empire and with the Tabreed and all the great guys over there. So awareness is the fastest way and the best way to spread this information. And slowly, slowly, we get traction in this method. So teaching, training, and then the other thing which can be done, as the BE has very successfully done, is to roll out ECBC in steps, and states adopted it one by one. It took a very long time in the first 5 years. There were only 4 or 5 states which adopted the code, and now there are 23 or more. I don't know how many there are, but certainly it has gone so far. Similarly, once the district cooling guidelines come, the first state can be Telangana, it can be Gujarat, it can be Tamil Nadu. These are all states where very proactive interaction takes place with private sector, public sector, and government interaction is very strong. So if those states take it up in the legislature, because everything is about the state, it cannot be done centrally. So this is the way this whole thing will roll, state by state, education by education, the Tabreed doing more projects in India, bidding and getting those contracts. So I think we are on a roll. It will take time. And the more we do, the more we encourage, the more we preach, the more we talk about it, the more private developers are encouraged to do it, and the roadblocks to be lifted one by one. One of them is GST, the tax on providing a service. So all these things have to come step by step.
Thank you very much, Vikram. While we're talking, we will go, let's see, we are running out a little bit of time, but I would like to come back to Roman there, because you might have some international experiences which could be good lessons learned that we could utilize and consider while developing district cooling further here locally in India. So you mentioned about your projects, the university campus projects.
Yes. Okay, I guess you can hear me now. Maybe what's interesting is to see that, first of all, the first project of district cooling we had was just, 2 office buildings connecting themselves to have some common distribution. Now we see that more and more communities or universities are asking for some huge important distribution system and district cooling. So we see it's a game changing for us, because we see more and more kind of client markets going on. And the most important, which is really interesting for us, maybe not the most important, but the very interesting one, is the new universities. Why universities? Because universities, they are very, they are the millennials, so they are very concerned by the climate change. Most of the biggest universities in the world declared the climate emergency, so they have the first awareness of how to less consume, how to in the climate change transformation, in the energy transition. So it's really interesting for us to work with them, and specifically in United States, because in the United States the universities are very huge. They are kind of cities, and the targets they have for 2025 are really incredible. Energy consumption, water, the waste, they want to consume local and so on. So it's one of the projects we have is the OSU, so Ohio State University. We are leading some electrical, heating and cooling distribution for all the universities. So it's more than 100,000 people living daily in this university, so it's really huge. What we are doing is that we procure the chilled water service, but mainly chilled water, electric and heating. It's a long-term agreement of 50 years, and how NG is paid with the global reduction of energy. So if we don't reduce the energy, we are not paid. So this is quite simple on the paper, but it's really interesting to have this. It's a typical contract we want to do more and more, because it's a global approach. It's not only the capex, it's not only the O&M, it's not only how we distribute, but it's also the way we work with the students, with the how we can reach some with smart meters and with teaching and educating, as it was said, how we can reach to less consume at the basis. And this is very important for us, because most globally in the world, we see that the efficiency when you have new AC is not there. So district cooling be part of the change. So this is it. And concerning the impact on the, I don't know if I come back to the impact on the electric grid, but I think it's something really important, because everything is more and more electrical as an energy utility. We see district heating, for example, coming to electric production. So heat pumps are coming a lot are used more and more in the systems. So it's very important to be careful about the electric demand. So that's why the impact on the heating demand at the base, at the source of how people consume less is important. Efficiency of district cooling, it was said that between 2 and 4 times more efficient. This is something really interesting. But it's also how we can propose some electric production on site. So for example, with OSU, there's a huge CHP producing the electric we need. It can be dispatched in the future, so it's also something interesting to always ensure cooling demand and always ensure electric demand. The question is also how we can locally produce some renewable electric production. So we see more and more projects with self-consumption production and consumption locally with district cooling. This is something really interesting. And in the studies I've made, we have to have in mind that when you have a DCS, if you sum the electric peak demand if everybody has an AC in the reference solution compared to top electric demand from DCS, the impact could be decreased by 40%. So it's really necessary, and we think it's a good solution for that. And then I would just finalize the storage is key to less consume at the peak, to do some more peak shaving. Storage is really important. So the distribution itself acts like a storage, but we want to put some more storage possibilities. And we are also leading some storage R&I on how we can bring decentralized storage and centralized storage with the best solution, molten salts, but also different seasonal storage, which could be really interesting also for India.
Thank you very much, Roman, for all that deep knowledge. We will seamlessly move over to the next part of this session. I would like all, if you're online, please stay with us, and we will then transform into part 2 of the session here. And thanks to all the speakers.
Thank you. We'll have a photograph as well. Now move on to the second session of second part of this session, which is on the policy interventions and financing needs to scale up DCS in India and the way forward.
So I think I will sit down here with everyone else, with my colleagues. I hope that is okay. So I will undertake the moderation a little bit before our distinguished moderator, Vishal Kapoor from Arjit Sengupta from Bureau of Energy Efficiency will come here. So maybe we can start here that everyone present themselves. Should we start with Professor Godara from the left?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So right now I'm Professor of Practice at IIT Delhi in the Mechanical Engineering Department, and my interest in district cooling emerged a little bit before I got to know GIZ and BEE's interest in doing it, out of pure interest that we have one part of the campus which is air-conditioned and another part of the campus which is the hostels, which is not. So that sparked the interest, and then I'm happy to be connected with a whole lot of stakeholders who are keen that we do a brownfield project evaluation, like a pre-feasibility study. I have about 30 years experience in industry as taking roles in different organizations in R&D, product development. So I developed product for the Indian Railways, which today works successfully. And I'm proud to say that we did design in India and make in India a long time before it was a buzzword. And thereafter, I worked for Carrier as General Manager Engineering, developing a whole lot of products in residential and commercial segment. And then after that, I worked in Danfoss, doing technology support to OEMs and business development in the Asia Pacific region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Aarti Nain. I am the advisor to National Institute of Urban Affairs on cooling. District cooling is one of the key components where we're looking at mobilizing city-level capacity to undertake such projects and other forms of cooling also, including passive cooling. I'm an architect by training. I was part of the team that updated the energy conservation building code. So that interest in cooling started from then and there. And I've also been part of the advisory team for ESL's multiple programs on cooling, including the chiller replacement program and air conditioning replacement program. At NIUA, currently, we are looking at integrating cooling, including DCS, into their ongoing programs, be it cities or under National Clean Ganga Mission and others. And we are also looking at how to develop capacities and update the policies wherever possible to scale up DCS. Thank you.
Thank you, Aarti. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tarun Katyar. I represent Tata Power trading company. Basically, I'm, as of now, part of the trading wing of Tata Power. And Tata Power, as you all are aware of, it's a vertically integrated utility. And I basically has the first-hand experience of, I would say, engaged on a project in 2008 when we were planning for the Commonwealth Games in Delhi. And in that instance, EIL was one of the consultants who was planning to put across a district cooling system as a part of utility management around the inner circle of Connaught Place. And we participated, or we were that time engaged with first DCS, Singapore-based company, as their implementation partner to explore that possibility of getting into this DCS. Somehow that project could not get started. In my current portfolio, I'm looking, apart from the trading business, energy as a service as one of the areas where we work extensively on your energy efficiency. And I believe we have good synergies there, looking forward to working on a cooling as a service. And DCS definitely plays a very key role. We are already started our engagement with various players in this, including ASIM's. This thing we just had just a couple of rounds of introductory sessions. I believe that's a huge potential, specifically when I look Indian market. And from a utility perspective, we are also very keen in exploring a possibility, as Asim was telling, that if utility can put across a land or land parcel to curtail down the load, probably we are trying to explore that possibility as well. So looking forward to this discussion. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bhaskar Natarajan, and I represent the Alliance for an Energy Efficient Economy. In short, APUEA, an industry body set up to advance and foster a culture of energy efficiency in the country. Right here, we are working with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency and GIZ on a cooperation program on district cooling in India, more about which I will speak as we go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhaskar, and the rest of the panelists. And I think you have heard enough of me, so I will not introduce myself anything more. Naturally, I think I will go back to you, Bhaskar. Could you elaborate a little bit on how you are working with Bureau of Energy Efficiency and GIZ in the space of district cooling?
Thank you, Michael. The earlier two sessions where DG BEE and the other speakers laid out the current situation of the increasing demand for cooling, and the challenges for district cooling to be implemented, I would like to mention that there are a couple of good things that have happened and are happening. Firstly, we do have a working model at Gift City for district cooling that has been functioning very well technically and financially for the last several years. We also have a project in Hyderabad for the residential sector, which also has been in operation for some years now. As you have heard, we have the tenders out for a Hyderabad Pharma City, which I believe will be another huge progress as far as district cooling is concerned. Several people have identified some of the challenges, whether it is GST, whether it is permission for digging, etc., etc. But I would like to go one level higher and mention a couple of things. First, district cooling by its nature will be a natural monopoly. And therefore, institutional models suggest that you would need a regulator. Who would be the regulator is a question that I'm sure the stakeholders and the government will discuss and come to a decision. But there is another important requirement before we come to the regulator. And that is, the regulator needs a lot of technical information. What are the efficiencies? What are the distances of pipes? How do you measure billing, collection, etc.? And also on the tariffs. The regulator has to ensure two things. One, the customer gets a competitive tariff to the alternative. But at the same time, the regulator has to ensure that the business that invests in district cooling gets an adequate, reasonable rate of return for them to continue to provide services and also to expand the services in the future. Having said this, I believe that the current models are great examples, and I believe that under the project that we are doing right now with GIZ, the first step has been taken in putting together the district cooling guidelines with all the stakeholders from forming a technical committee established by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. The draft is almost in its final stages, and I believe we should be able to release this in the next month or two. However, we also need collaboration from potential stakeholders on where district cooling will be installed. And this is where we have two options. One is a complete private sector option, but there is also a government nudge, as has been debated. Should government mandate district cooling in new potential greenfield projects such as airports, new city developments, etc.? We do have the environmental impact assessment for large city and construction projects, which is a potential way of requesting the agencies to inquire into district cooling. The government can't say district cooling is forced, but they can definitely say, consider district cooling and tell me what are the issues with it. Let me stop here now, and I'm happy to listen to the others, and I'll come back with more comments as we move ahead. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Bhaskar, for that, and a great introduction to what you're doing and how you see the space in general, but also the importance of regulations and policies. I think there are a lot of experience to draw from international markets, but it has to be localized. Now we have the great pleasure to welcome Mr. Arijit Sengupta, our moderator for this section from Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So let's have an applause to welcome him here. In order not to put Arijit on the spot, I think we should maybe feed a little bit on what we have been discussing so far. So we have had a general introduction from everyone, and we have discussed a little bit what everyone is doing in general in the space of district cooling. So I think it would be perfect now. I will hand over the microphone to you, and you introduce yourself, and then I will let you have the session going from there.
Thank you, Michael. And so, again, apologies for the delay, from my part. And of course, the outset would like to thank India Smart Grid Forum for inviting the Bureau of Energy Efficiency to be part of this session, and been able to, really privileged to be able to share our thoughts and views, and also the work that we are currently doing in this field. So as far as I think, I'm not aware, but I think the context might have already been said. Maybe I will be repeating few of those things. So as we are all aware that the cooling demand in the country, as per the projections of the India Cooling Action Plan, is projected to grow almost 8 times to around 970 million tons of refrigeration. And the majority of the growth is expected to happen in the space cooling sector. So and if we look at the space cooling sector, and if we talk about the cooling demand, it is dominated by the room air conditioners. And that is where I think this concept of district cooling can really play a good role. So district cooling along with thermal storage can be the key solution to limit the demand, the cooling demand that we are going to anticipate in a country like India. And I would not only talk about India in today's forum, but I would also like to just, maybe we can expand a bit. I mean, if we look at the cooling demand, where it is going to come from in the next 20 years, it's like India, Indonesia, Brazil, and so all these countries where we are developing economies. So where we have a cooling demand of, like in India, around 8 to 10%, the penetration. So it is going to increase. So even if this increase happens by 20 to 30%, so this sustainable, the concept of sustainable cooling will be of huge importance. And so district cooling can really play a key role. Although we have many successful case studies of district cooling in other parts of the globe, most likely in the Middle East and also in Singapore, but not, I would say, not so much in India or in Indonesia or something like that. And in India, we of course have the example of GIFT City, which is running quite successfully, and we are, as part of our India's presidency of G20, so under the Energy Transition Working Group, we have also planned for a site visit of the district cooling facility for the G20 members. So we are trying to put the concept of district cooling at the forefront. It is very much a policy that we are trying to look. And Bureau of Energy Efficiency, along with GIZ, supported by APUEA, we are implementing a project on district cooling. We're in the process of coming up with guidelines. Honorable Minister of Power has already reviewed it once, has already taken one meeting. He has made some suggestions. So very soon, I mean, India will also come up with its own DC code. And the primary feature of that code will be how to use district cooling as a service, like gas, electricity, water, something like that. So that's how we are looking at to promote district cooling. I think this kind of sessions, we have a rich panel in place. So these kind of sessions will enable us to further fine-tune our document, and we can look forward to implement. So thank you for your patience. So maybe we can just go ahead with the speakers. And as Michael informed that we have already had the introduction in place. So maybe I can start with Bhaskarji. So your thoughts on the district cooling. Of course, you are an active partner as far as promoting district cooling is concerned. So would like to really hear from you your thoughts on how to uptake and upscale district cooling in the country. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. But just before you came, I have highlighted the fact that district cooling will need a regulator. Firstly, because it's a natural monopoly. The second point that I made is the regulator will need inputs from various stakeholders on the technology, the performance parameters, and various technical issues that will go into deciding whether the person who's operating and installing the system is delivering the services in an efficient manner. I also mentioned the fact, Arijitji, that the regulator has a dual role. Firstly, to ensure that the customer gets a competitive tariff as compared to the next best alternative, and also to ensure that the DC service provider is able to generate a reasonable surplus for the company to continue to provide services, and also to ensure that expansion of the system continues to happen. I did mention to the audience here that the technical guidelines are in the final stages, and we definitely hope we would bring in all the stakeholders to discuss these in more detail as we go along. Thank you so much, Arijit.
Yeah, thank you, Bhaskarji. Thank you for your remarks. So moving on with the session, I request Michael to kindly, of course, APUEA has been assisting us a lot. I've been attending their programs. So a lot of capacity building programs has happened under their leadership. And we also have Arti, of course, is here. So we'll come back to the UNEP projects. So previously we had this project of UNEP which focused on promoting district cooling. So APUEA was, of course, an active partner. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much. I think it's important what you have done here in India is really, really great first steps, I would like to start to say. And the thing is that we have heard several times during this session that about the gift city. That means that you have a good example. That's very, very, very important to have that good example, because from many markets, I have personally developed and optimized close to 30 district cooling schemes, taking them from nothing into operation all the way. And it's been a lot of challenges, obviously, and there has been many cases where you don't have this good example to look into. So that example is very important. You mentioned, Arijit, the capacity building that has been going on. It's very important. Keep to promote district cooling, public awareness, increased awareness through the both public and private sector is very important. It's important to build the capacity. There are many good players active in the market. One we have here in the panel already, strong companies that can support with implementing district cooling systems. But we need the capacity also on the public side, because it's requiring program management in the government sector as well. So that kind of capacity building. I have never ever experienced a market where there is not more need for capacity building. Even if we go to the most advanced district cooling markets, it's also this capacity building very much required. We can go on a lot, but I think I would like to just say that you are really on a great path here, Arijit, I think. And you also from Bureau of Energy Efficiency have taken some ownership on the question also, which I think is quite rare as well. And I think that is really, really great. The work that you do with APUEA, GIZ and others, it's great. So I think I start with highlighting that what I see as positive things, because I see quite bright on the district cooling future of India.
Thank you, Michael. And of course, the point that you made about capacity building, of course, we cannot more agree on that. It's the need of the hour. That is why I think we need to keep on discussing things like this in this kind of forums, so that we can educate people more and more about the concepts, and then gradually take on to those who actually are going to implement it. So thank you, Michael. So moving on, so we have Mr. Tarun Katiyarji, who is the CEO of Tata Power Trading Company. And so Tarunji, I would like to understand from you, what is the perspective of that as a distribution company or as a trading company? How would you envisage the concept of district cooling? Because we have been talking about promoting district cooling as a service like gas, electricity. So that's exactly where you can throw some more light on it. So over to you, Tarunji.
Thanks, Arjit. I think I covered during my introduction also that apart from the trading, we are also energy as a service is one of the areas where we are focusing upon. And cooling as a service is something which fits in very well there. So that's one area where we are definitely focusing. Apart from that, I personally feel there is a lot of scope for integrating utilities. We are talking about gas, water, electricity, and maybe chilled water or DCS for Indian conditions. Then can be clubbed for all new developments which are likely to happen or likely to come up. In fact, we are seeing that a lot of CGD tenders have been floated or companies have been given licenses for that. There would be definite, and there is, we are basically, I will just introduce, we have around 1.2 million, or rather 12 million customers, and we have served entire Odisha. So typically in Odisha, what we are focusing, or we are trying to explore a possibility, if we can bring out a common utility corridors concept where we can house electricity, because that's a demand which is ever growing. Then we are in discussion with GIL Gas and other companies. We can put it across probably the gas pipelines. And also we are looking for water pipelines if we can explore a possibility with water gel boards and other things. And a layer over that could be a DCS or district cooling, which can definitely help, and it can be an integrated solution for a customer where all hassles and other things are typically on the, or billing and other things has been taken care by one utility partner. So that's the concept which we are exploring as of now. We have initiated our discussion, in fact, quite new to this area, but we have certainly initiated our discussions around that. Two things just wanted to add upon that. I think awareness is something which is definitely more required in this area, because we had a lot of focus. DCS, when I heard first, was in 2008. After that, we have a stream coming out of a renewable. We have all renewables, everything has flown. Now we are talking about EV, hydrogen and other things. But we are, to that extent, I feel DCS has been not been put across impetus. And I think this is an opportunity for government also to leapfrog on this, and probably it will definitely help utilities like us to have energy efficiency, which is our one of the targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarun Katiyar, for these encouraging words, and lovely to hear that energy efficiency is also one of the priority lists. So, moving on, I now will request Ms. Aarti Nayan, who is the NIUA advisor, UNEP India Urban Cooling Program from UNEP. In fact, before, of course, I hand over to her, she has been instrumental in ensuring that under the NIUA guidelines, now DCS has been integrated as one of the parameters under the climate assessment, climate smart city assessment framework. So, many thanks to you for promoting as part of the NIUA guidelines. So with this small, and of course, I had the privilege of working with her earlier as well in different capacities. So over to you, Aarti.
Thank you, Arijit, for that very kind phrase. Yes, so NIUA has the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework, where we benchmark city performance across different environmental parameters, such as energy, systems, green cover, air pollution and mobility, and so on and so forth, water and waste also. And we are trying to integrate cooling as one of the indicators for cities to perform against. Also, UNEP, in fact, yesterday signed an MOU with the Tamil Nadu state agencies to do a pilot on cooling. It includes multiple cooling solutions, and we will definitely try to explore DCS amongst one of them. So hopefully there will be a pilot there sooner than later. With NIU, I think our main focus on DCS also is on building capacities of the cities, because even if you have regulators as suggested by Dr. Bhaskar Natarajan, ultimately cities are going to be the beneficiaries and recipients of these systems, and they have a huge stake. So what we are trying to do is trying to, first of all, introduce them to the technology and the system, and also help them in building up the most basic instruments, as in how to coordinate DCS in their cities. What is the coordination mechanism? Who are the agencies going to be, who will be involved? Because while a few buildings or campuses are going to be connected, but the distribution network for a DCS is going to impact the whole city. Installing that network is going to impact cities, and there will be multiple agencies involved in installing it. So how to integrate all of them? So even if there's a central or a state level regulator installing the system, all parties are working cohesively. So that is one of the key things that we are trying to do, and also a guideline, in the near future for cities, specifically for cities, on how to prepare for DCS, and especially on planning for DCS in their land use zoning. So some cities may have missed the bus because we were not aware of the technology, but I am sure as cities expand in the future and we are going to grow, our urbanization rates are like some of the most aggressive in the world. So right now is the time, I think, where we can start looking at this, not only airports, but the future central business districts, or maybe all of the cities, our downtowns, could be connected. So that I think the cities have a huge role to play to plan this, update their planning regulations, their bylaws, their other planning and construction control regulations to prepare for this and identify what could be the anchor loads. So that, as Asim was talking about offtake. So in the future projects, that offtake could be definitely guaranteed. And the last announcement, which we are just thinking of, is, there's this emphasis from RBI on pushing municipal bonds with cities. And that could be a financing mechanism if cities are able to pull off. There was, I think, MAUA did a study of about 100 cities, did their credit rating, and 60% of them had a very satisfactory rating, which means that they can actually think of floating green bonds or municipal bonds, and that could be a financing mechanism other than gas and other models. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aarti, for you sharing this. And of course, I would again reiterate that it is indeed a welcome step that NIUA has now integrated the DCS as one of the parameters for this climate smart cities assessment framework. So before I hand over to Bhupinder ji, just a small background that we all know that district cooling is something which is more workable and more easier to handle for greenfield projects. And that is where the background which we are coming from. And of course, any greenfield project, it is easier to implement a project like district cooling. So when we first discussed regarding this, we had a meeting at the IIT Delhi. Dr. Bhupinder Godara was also actively involved. So we have now taken up this challenge of how to convert a brownfield project, and that too at the IIT Delhi campus. So of course, you can very well understand that to convert a campus which is, almost 50, 60, 70, 100 years old. So just to convert it into a DCS, it will, how much, but that is the challenge that Dr. Godara has taken. So with this, I would request Dr. Bhupinder Godara to kindly share his thoughts and views on the uptake of district cooling. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to assess a brownfield project, and particularly university campus, as to what would it mean to convert the entire cooling heating requirements to district energy, and is there sufficient energy savings, is there sufficient pull from the users, and can we manage the complexity, and finally create a template, possibly a template which would serve as an analytical tool for other campuses to evaluate when it would make sense and if it would make sense for them to move to district cooling. So in this, first thing is awareness. So the first time when we met at IIT Delhi with GIZ, BEE, and it was a discussion which kind of enabled that, yes, we could actually do a pre-feasibility study to see what it would be. And we began to look at the opportunities. So there are hostels in IIT Delhi that are not air-conditioned, and the newer ones are air-conditioned, and the master plan includes the provision for having a new construction come up in place of the old ones. So there's clearly an opportunity for that capital investment to be avoided if we go in for a district energy system. Secondly, all our requirements are, on campus are only taking care of the cooling need. But we know from our electricity bills that during winters, because the cost of a heat convector is very low, a significant amount of energy goes into heating. So could we benefit, what would be the value of the energy saved if we were to use a heat pump and then we don't just go for district cooling, but we go for district energy, which means we address both cooling and heating. Now there then comes the complexity. Do we need simultaneous possibility of some part of the facilities having heating and others cooling, and then that cost? So we are actually, the more we get into the details of it, the dimensioning of it, what size of pipelines, what routing to do, where to locate the central facility, and should we have one or maybe more than one? Should we follow the gift city example or not? And the more I get into it, I find that the amount of resource that I originally envisaged for doing this right and what I can now see, that there is a multitude of difference. Much more engineering evaluation hours need to go in, but we don't want to lose focus, and we want to keep it objective, data-driven. Possibly any of the assessments we do about the baseline, if some part of it is validated with the proper measurement of energy that goes into cooling and heating, that is the overall inspiration. And then we know that there are countries, like in the US, we know that there is a successful district energy system that operates in a campus. So how can we collaborate? And many of the things we could learn from successful installations of district energy systems. But finally, could we have a software tool that we plug in, what is the heat load here, what is the heat load here, what is the cooling load here, put it in a way that brings in a factor of diversity, what kind of storage we can include, and can this whole thing from an infrastructure perspective be integrated with some of the new buildings in terms of creating space for the district energy system, where to locate, for example, the thermal energy storage, if that makes sense. And unfortunately, there have been some earlier attempts to streamline the cabling, the utility cabling. So that is handy in the sense that if we were to include the piping that goes for the district energy system within that tunnel by expanding the diameter of the tunnel, then it could actually fit well. So far, I get a sense that yes, it should be possible. What the numbers would be like in terms of payback, we don't know yet. Is something that we are kind of spreading our reach and looking at who all can support our project and do it right. But it definitely is a very, very interesting opportunity. And as I said in my opening remarks, if we have equipment which takes care of cooling in the lecture hall complexes and they're not used at night, the real benefit of using that same cooling in another part of the campus where students need it at night is wonderful, and it would actually eliminate a lot of infrastructure investment. So I think with that, I would close.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for highlighting the challenges that one can envisage in a brownfield project to implement district cooling. So we have only 2 minutes left. So still, I think we can take a couple of questions from the audience. Please introduce yourself and also please let us know whom the question is directed to. Yeah, yes, please. Can somebody help with the microphone, please?
Just one query. District cooling is considered to be a larger canvas, a macro, you may say, considering a variety of the loads. But it's a miniaturization can also help. Suppose office premises there, and in the neighbor a new premise is coming up, and my facility already has an installed capacity which has a design buffer and an experience buffer. It should be enabled by the draft guidelines that if the building within the vicinity of 50 meter or 100 meter has a common chiller where the capacity can be lended on a commercial basis to a guy, that can help the adoption at 100 or 200 ton of refrigeration level also. We have been thinking of a larger one, 10,000, 20,000 tons, but miniaturization can also help in adoption of a common cooling system, a micro version of DCS.
So you see, in the guidelines, of course, we are not specifically talking about the miniature form of this thing, but definitely what we are saying that maybe a 5,000 to 7,000 TR. That's the range where a DCS should ideally be work. I mean, it has to be profitable also at the end of the day. So the system, you have to kind of earn your revenue from the investment. So that is also required. But capacities which are much smaller, I mean, the challenges, of course, like 100 TR or 200 TR, we don't think it will be a good idea to implement DCS in those kind of facilities. At least 5,000, 7,000 TR is what we are proposing in our guidelines to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, hello. I'm CP Tiwari from Tata Power. What I believe, this is not a question, but because you see, until unless we are able to integrate 2-3 technologies, like you mentioned initially that if we can integrate it with thermal energy storage, or if we can convert it as a heating as well as a cooling also, because if you see in India, in Delhi you will have a lot of heating requirement also and cooling requirement also. So if we can really develop a model in which we can improve energy efficiency by integrating 2-3 technologies, then it could be a game changer. That is my personal view, and industry should work in this direction. That's all.
No, I think it was a very good suggestion. It is, I mean, we have been thinking of kind of implementing the uptake of DCS through. That's why I mentioned about integrating it with thermal storage to begin with. And of course, it's a good suggestion, well noted. Anyone else? Yeah, please.
Myself, Rosmikant Behra from TPNODL. Actually, our issue is, as we belong to coastal belt, humidity issue is more. And heat dissipation, it is due to this problem, that is a fault in cable transformer or power transformer. Is the DCS system going to help us or not?
Last thing I could not get you. What you
Sir, is this system, the DCS system, is going to help us or not?
On the humidity?
Yes.
Anyone would like to take?
Yeah. So let me understand this. Are you anticipating that humidity control would be compromised because we're going to use a district cooling system? Is that what you are?
Yes, sir.
No, it would not. Because just like in any air handling unit, we define the apparatus dew point while designing in a way that we take care of both the sensible and the latent load. So the same would apply for district cooling system. So it would not pose a limitation. Yes. Unless we address humidity, we cannot ensure comfort. So we cannot be compromising the user. I get your point. See, let me share with you. Yeah. I was involved with the designing products at Carrier, both the residential small units and ducted split units, and also involved with the Intertech for testing in one of the most precise ways of testing, which is a balanced ambient calorimeter. A normal residential air conditioner or a comfort cooling device is addressing temperature. All the controls are through temperature, and indirectly we are gaining control over humidity because we design the apparatus. We design the apparatus with a dew point of the coil somewhere around 7 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed.
Now the water temperature in a district cooling system can be selected such that for the environment we are designing for and what kind of fresh air intake systems we are designing. So there could be smart ways of taking care of humidity, and a straight answer is that there is no problem. I don't anticipate any issue in maintaining humidity levels.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to explain to you, district cooling requires very large delta T, very high temperature difference. And so that is to benefit pumping and so on and so forth. But also, as Sir said just now, that the low side equipment, the air handling unit, has very specially designed coils and larger surface area. So you will get humidity control very similar to a central plant. And you can control that very well at the air handling unit because of its design. Right.
Thank you, Murthy ji, for your clarification. So although the time is already up, But still, if anybody has any more questions, maybe we can take one question. If anybody would like to, yeah, please.
Is there any method to measure the consumption on the consumer side? Consumption of energy in DCS specifically. How will you measure the consumption?
Consumption of energy, how to measure consumption of energy?
Yes, for individual consumers.
So, I mean, it's like we also have energy meters. So,
yes.
Like the way we measure electricity bill, gas bill, so we can have the same kind of methodology for measuring energy from a DCS unit as well.
Are you meaning billing, like how to bill the cooling part?
Yes.
So you actually will look at the temperature difference and the flow rate of water. So the mass flow rate of water and the temperature difference will translate into the amount of cooling that you have given to a particular home or office. And you would have meters that would take care of it. Some part of the electricity would be in the terminal unit. So let's say if you have a small unit indoors, whatever electricity that consumes would be a small fan, and that would be independent of that energy. So I think measurement is not a challenge. The billing part of it is something we have to be recognizing how we will bill. Will users be willing to accept that billing mess? And that's why this whole discussion, today we are trying to create a climate where people begin to accept billing based on the cooling provided or heating provided by water.
In the gift city, there is a BTU meter that is installed at every customer's premise. And therefore, the billing is done on the basis of BTU consumed during a certain given billing period. At the same time, there is a BTU per ton that is given as a fixed capacity charge for the customers. So there are meters available. They're all of the standards and the accuracy that is defined in these relevant standards. That's not a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the panelists for making this session so interesting. Thank you, Bhupender ji, Aarti, Mr. Tarun Katiyar, Michael, and Bhaskar ji, and also the audience for putting up such good questions which made the session interactive. So with this, of course, I would not like to stand between you and lunch. So please move forward for having a lunch, and thank you very much for enabling an active discussion.
Thank you, session chair and moderator, for steering the discussions, and thank you to all our speakers. The next to Mr. Tarun Katiyar. To Ms. Aarti Nain. And to Mr. Bhupinder Godaya. I'm requesting all to kindly join for a group photograph. 2 p.m. But we have very less time. So I request everybody to come back in the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you.